Imagine the exact moment the final illusion of supremacy shatters. You sit in your private study, reviewing the final transfer deeds for one of the most prestigious grace and favor estates in the royal portfolio, only to be interrupted by the arrival of a single notarized letter. A senior estate manager, flanked by legal counsel, politely informs you that your signature no longer holds any constitutional authority, and the property allocation rights have been officially annexed by the Prince of Wales. You are left staring at voided contracts, realizing that your grandest architectural ambition has just been erased with a single stroke of a pen. This is the story of a cold, bloodless administrative execution. In less than 48 hours, Queen Camilla went from orchestrating a total takeover of the crown's most fiercely contested real estate to being handed a masterclass in institutional revenge by Prince William and Princess Catherine. What Camilla just realized behind closed doors is that wearing a crown on your head does not mean you own the land beneath your feet. In this video, we will unpack the staggering secret power grab she attempted to execute over the sprawling grounds of Royal Lodge. We will reveal how the heir to the throne and the Princess of Wales uncovered the damning paper trail, the ruthless, silent retaliation that immediately followed, and the devastating realization that despite her 30-year climb to the highest seat in the nation, Camilla actually controls absolutely no property within the sovereign estate. To fully grasp the magnitude of this sudden collapse, we must first look at the towering illusion of absolute power she had constructed around her public image. For 3 decades, Camilla played the longest, most calculating game in modern royal history. She survived the vicious public fallout following the death of Princess Diana, weathering the resentment of the British public with lethal, unyielding patience. With a highly sophisticated billionaire public relations machine working overtime in the shadows, she slowly rebranded herself from the most controversial woman in Britain to an indispensable royal asset. By the time King Charles assumed the throne, her confidence had grown into a highly visible display of untouchable authority. We all watched as she quietly and efficiently dropped the word consort from her official title, overriding the explicit written boundaries set by the late Queen Elizabeth. She operated with the breezy confidence of a woman who thought she had successfully rewritten history, assuming that the king's deep emotional dependence on her provided an unbreakable shield against any internal palace rebellion. She believed she had finally conquered the monarchy, cementing her legacy as the ultimate gatekeeper to the sovereign. But absolute power breeds a very specific kind of blindness, masking a deep, unspoken commercial desperation. Camilla knows the brutal, unforgiving truth of the Windsor family architecture better than anyone. Her position, her wealth, and her lavish lifestyle are entirely dependent on the heartbeat of one man. Should King Charles pass away, her legal standing and her executive influence evaporate overnight. She commands no constitutional authority, and crucially, she does not personally own the historic palaces and sweeping landscapes she uses to project her royal dominance. Every square inch belongs to the crown estate or the private duchies. Driven by this existential ticking clock, she initiated her most daring and fatal secret power grab yet, utilizing an ongoing family crisis to mask her corporate ambition. The monarchy had been engaged in a highly publicized, bitter struggle regarding the eviction of Prince Andrew from the massive 30-room mansion known as Royal Lodge. While the public viewed this as a routine downsizing of a disgraced royal, Camilla saw it as an unprecedented commercial opportunity. She quietly instructed her private office to draft legal frameworks that would transfer the management and residency rights of the Royal Lodge estate directly to her own commercial allies and non-royal family members. Her strategic objective was breathtaking in its audacity. She sought to bypass the Crown Estate Commissioners and establish a permanent, unbreakable legal foothold within the sovereign's most exclusive properties. She was attempting to convert the sprawling grounds of Royal Lodge into an independent, sovereign-funded fortress for her own dynasty ensuring that her inner circle would retain a luxurious stronghold long after the current reign ended. It was a calculated gamble to transform borrowed royal prestige into hard, unassailable real estate permanence while the king was distracted by his ongoing medical treatments. She assumed that her movements were entirely hidden in the shadows of palace bureaucracy, completely confident that no one would dare challenge a property directive coming from the private office of the Queen. However, she fundamentally underestimated the silent forensic watchfulness of Prince William and Princess Catherine. The Prince of Wales does not leak his frustrations to the tabloids, nor does he engage in dramatic family arguments over territory. He reads the ledgers and he controls the financial arteries of the working monarchy. When the covert transfer deeds and long-term residency applications for Royal Lodge crossed the desks of the estate's highest constitutional controllers, William instantly recognized the paper trail. He saw the staggering exploitation hidden within the legal jargon. He saw the most prestigious grace and favor property in the royal portfolio being quietly siphoned off to facilitate a corporate land grab for a woman desperately trying to secure her unearned legacy. And he did not act alone. He brought the undeniable evidence directly to his wife, Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Together they looked at the undeniable proof of Camilla's attempted real estate coup. For William and Catherine, this was not merely a violation of property management protocol, it was a profound moral outrage. Catherine has spent years enduring the relentless pressures of royal duty, intense public scrutiny, and severe personal health crises with uncomplaining sacrifice. She bled for the institution to secure its future with untouchable grace, never once attempting to hijack the crown's historic estates for independent corporate gain. To watch Camilla, a woman driven by aggressive commercial ambition, attempt to leapfrog Catherine's quiet endurance and exploit the eviction of a royal duke to enrich her own non-royal lineage was the absolute final line. What happened next was a masterclass in weaponized restraint. There were no screaming matches in a drawing room. There were no dramatic public confrontations or leaks to the press. The retaliation was silent, bloodless, and devastatingly institutional. William and Catherine weaponized the very administrative property protocols Camilla had tried to bypass. Working in absolute synchronization with senior institutional trustees, William invoked his sweeping authority as the heir apparent and the Duke of Cornwall. He quietly issued a sweeping legal injunction that completely overrode the authorizations from Camilla's private office. The transfer deeds were nullified immediately, but the true strike was a total dismantling of her remaining influence. William officially absorbed the allocation rights for all major grace and favor properties, including Royal Lodge, directly into his own executive portfolio. The trap snapped shut on a seemingly normal weekday morning. A senior estate manager arrived at Camilla's private suite, delivering the formal notice of the portfolio consolidation. As Camilla read the document, the cold reality of her situation crystallized in an instant. Her allies had been permanently blocked from the property, her administrative levers were shattered, and her grand dynastic fortress had been entirely seized by the future king. Standing in her private suite, holding a piece of paper that systematically dismantled her 30-year dream of absolute permanence, Camilla finally realized the horrifying truth. She may wear the crown, but she is utterly powerless against the man who actually owns the land. Panicked, isolated, and utterly humiliated by the surgical precision of the strike, she retreated to her inner quarters to make the one phone call she believed would save her. She reached for the phone to call King Charles, expecting the man she had controlled for decades to wage war against his own son to protect her empire. The phone call from Camilla's private quarters lasted less than 3 minutes, but it contained the psychological climax of a 30-year campaign for supremacy. When the line finally connected to King Charles's private study, Camilla frantically detailed the voided transfer deeds, the sudden legal injunctions, and the staggering humiliation of having the Royal Lodge allocation rights officially annexed by the Prince of Wales. She fully expected the monarch to rage. She expected the man who had torn his own family apart to marry her, the man who had spent decades demanding that the institution bow to her presence, to immediately summon his heir and demand the property documents be rewritten. Instead, what she heard on the other end of the line was a hollow, devastating silence. Charles did not yell. He did not promise a sweeping palace counteroffensive to restore her real estate ambitions. He simply offered a quiet, defeated sigh, acknowledging that the management of the sovereign's grace and favor properties and the broader estate portfolios were now operating under the absolute authority of the Prince of Wales. He quietly whispered that there was nothing he could do. That specific moment of royal silence represents a contradiction that changes the reading of everything. For decades, Camilla had operated under the absolute certainty that King Charles would burn the world down to protect her from consequence. But in the twilight of his transitional reign, confronted with the unified forensic front of Prince William and Princess Catherine, Charles made a cold, pragmatic surrender to the realities of his own mortality. A king's ultimate duty is never to his spouse, but to the permanent survival of the line. To challenge his heir over an unauthorized corporate land grab, especially one that exploited an ongoing family crisis, would mean triggering an institutional civil war that his reign simply could not survive. Charles understands that he relies completely on William's financial and public stability. He looked at the chessboard and chose the survival of the crown over the real estate ego of his wife. His silence was not just a lack of action. It was the ultimate emotional betrayal, a devastating confirmation that, when the institution is threatened, Camilla's independent ambitions are entirely expendable. This sudden isolation brings us directly to the staggering reality of Camilla's commercial desperation. When we look at the British monarchy from the outside, we see historic palaces, sweeping landscapes, and breathtaking architecture. But the underlying truth of the institution is a strict, unforgiving corporate hierarchy based entirely on constitutional precedent and land ownership. The physical properties of the Windsor family, from the grand halls of Buckingham Palace to the sprawling grounds of Royal Lodge, are not personal playgrounds to be handed out to friends. They are sovereign entities managed by a strict set of operational bylaws. Camilla actually owns nothing within those reinforced stone walls. Her personal wealth, independent of what Charles can legally gift her from his highly restricted private funds, is practically non-existent in the context of royal billionaires. She does not hold the title to Clarence House. She has no equity in Highgrove. And she possesses absolutely no legal claim to the sovereign estates. Every square inch of the royal footprint belongs either to the crown lands or to the private duchies held firmly by the King and the Prince of Wales. The moment William assumed control of the Duchy of Cornwall and began consolidating the broader estate management, he became the absolute landlord of the very properties Camilla relied upon to project her influence. Without the king actively forcing the institutional doors open for her, she is immediately reduced to a temporary tenant of the crown. If Charles passes away, she immediately becomes a dowager queen, a ceremonial widow with no constitutional power, no automatic right to a royal residence, and no guaranteed income from the major estates. She initiated her secret maneuver for Royal Lodge precisely because she was terrified of this exact scenario. She tried to convert a royal eviction into a permanent leasehold for her own family before her window of opportunity slammed shut forever. But William closed the vault and Charles refused to force it back open. By legally annexing the property rights, William and Catherine executed a public demonstration of structural reality. They used the strict bylaws of the estate to remind Camilla that she is merely a guest within the royal apparatus. The land she walks on belongs entirely to a system that William now firmly controls. With Camilla's covert strategy completely dismantled, a quiet but profound restoration began taking place inside the palace, culminating in a visual shift that the court will never forget. Just weeks after the Royal Lodge injunction, the power dynamic shifted drastically through the highly coded visual language of the institution. During a major diplomatic summit hosted at the Windsor estate, sharp-eyed observers noticed a massive correction in the royal choreography. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepped out to co-host the event alongside Prince William, commanding the grand reception rooms of the castle with a refined, untouchable grace. She was positioned visibly and prominently at the absolute center of the architectural frame, acting as the undeniable steward of the sovereign's properties. Meanwhile, Camilla's extended family members and commercial allies, who had briefly enjoyed unprecedented access to the Windsor grounds, were quietly omitted from the guest lists, entirely absent from the sovereign enclosure. That detail matters immensely. In the highly scrutinized world of royal maneuvering, physical placement and architectural access are the ultimate currency. To have the Prince and Princess of Wales intentionally secure the perimeter of the sovereign estate, while the Queen Consort's allies were permanently locked out, was a bloodless, devastating rebuke. It communicated a clear message to every politician, aristocrat, and estate manager in attendance. The era of unauthorized institutional land grabs had been terminated. The natural order had been restored by the true architects of the monarchy's future. While Camilla was desperately reaching for permanent relevance through real estate tricks and unauthorized property transfers, Catherine was effortlessly securing the future of the monarchy. Catherine did not need to manipulate an eviction to secure a historic home. She had earned her absolute centrality through the quiet, uncomplaining sacrifice that defines true royal duty. William's ruthless defense of the Royal Lodge portfolio was at its core, a fiercely protective shield raised around his wife and the enduring integrity of the crown. It was William, ensuring that the woman who actually bled for the institution would never be undermined by a corporate strategy disguised as royal management. What Prince William and Princess Catherine achieved was a masterclass in weaponized restraint. They did not leak scandalous stories to the press. They did not publicly embarrass the king. They used the very legal system Camilla tried to exploit to silently strip her of any real authority over the land beneath her feet. They reminded her that a crown is just a hollow piece of metal if the permanent owners of the estate refuse to grant you a lease. The illusion of absolute power has finally shattered. The long game has been played, and the trap has definitively snapped shut. As the British monarchy prepares to cross the threshold into its next era, Camilla is being forced to watch the future unfold from the outside, looking in. She may continue to sit on the throne today, smiling for the cameras and waving during state processions, but she is presiding over an entirely empty empire. The property deeds are voided. The gates are permanently locked, and her ultimate institutional reckoning has already been executed in the absolute silence of the palace corridors. If you found this deep dive into the hidden power dynamics and silent retaliation of the royal family insightful, make sure to subscribe and leave a like on this video. Let us know in the comments how you think the institution will look when Prince William finally takes full control of the sovereign estates. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next breakdown.